Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we'll be going through the tips from round 17, seeing how I went, as well, and going through the tips for round 18 of the AFL season. So let's just jump in. So to kick off the round, that was round 17, most people I think actually did really well and got a really decent score. I ended up in the top 31%. And I was 1 point off for the round. I don't believe somehow that is true, that you can get 1 point off the margin and be in the top 31%. Don't get that. But I did go up a heck of a lot of ranks, which is a good thing. I'm pretty sure I was around about if we look at it, 308k, and I went in the end to a 31%. And that's back-to-back weeks that I've gone perfect in terms of my picking. I went 7 of 7 2 weeks ago, and now I've gone 9 of 9. So 16 out of the last 16 with, I think, around about 250 or 60 point differential across 16 games is a pretty decent run. And you'll see the run this week of points differential. There was I think a whole day on the Saturday where 3 or 4 games, I think I only went up points differential wise by, I had a run of 4 games just looking at it. So 5 games where I went and picked the margin by 12 points combined in 5 games. So we'll go through it. So this game, first to start the week, Western Bulldogs against North Melbourne. I picked Western Bulldogs to win by 50 points, and they won by 49. They couldn't just have picked kicked an extra point, and it would have looked like a perfect round on this. But yeah, to pick just straight up 50 points and then to win by 49 is a really, really good scenario there. Then you've got Carlton against Collingwood. I ended up picking Carlton. Oh, sorry, not Carlton. Why would I pick Carlton? Oh, sorry, that's wrong. I ended up picking Collingwood, just looking at my notes here, by 29 points, and they ended up flogging them. It probably was a little bit of a better margin than what it should have been. In the end, they won by, 56 points. So I was 27 points off. That was the second worst pick of the round for me. And then you're about to see in this game, the third worst pick of the round. I ended up picking GWS. We'll get to Gold Coast in a second. GWS. Can't mutter my words in this video. I picked them by 42. If you do 42 onto West Coast, that's 94. So I was 17 points off there. Not the worst outcome. So you think through 3 games, my margin cumulatively is 45. Now we get into the really, really good part of the round where I basically, in all intents and purposes, absolutely nailed the heck out of this until the last game of the round. To the point that I sort of looked it up after the Sydney game, which we'll get to, and went, I'm on for a really, really good round here. But, so, Gold Coast, 115, Essendon, 74. That's a 41-point margin. I tipped Gold Coast by 35 points. 6 points off there. That was about the middling stick for my round. That was about the 5th best tip for the round. Now is when we get into the really good run of it. Geelong by 76 was my guess. They won by 72. I was 4 points off in a game where they won by plus 70. That's a really good tip. Gets my cumulative margin to 55. Now we get into even better stuff. Brisbane, I had by 27. They won by 28. That's a 1 point margin. A really, really good margin in a game. So that, yeah. And then we get to the next game. I had Hawthorn by 19. They won by 20. I was 1 point off there. That's another really, really good margin game to pick. And then we get to Sydney against Fremantle. My boys played against Fremantle. I tipped them by 11. That's an 11-point margin. I've just gone back-to-back-to-back tips, tipping by perfect or 1 point off. I don't think I will ever do that again. And to think that 5-game run from Saturday to Sunday, about 4 p.m. when it had happened, that I was basically perfect. That I don't think anyone had tipped anyone closer than that. It's quite ridiculous. And then just we get to Adelaide against Melbourne. Tipped Adelaide by 51. I thought at home that they'd win pretty convincingly. They won by 13 points. That was a really horrific display by them. So they decided to ruin the party. 38 points off. Worst tip of the round. 95-point margin for round 17. That is probably, I would hazard a guess, quite easily going to be my best round that I will ever tip on this channel. It's going to be hard to beat that round. I had 3 games that I tipped that were worse than a kick in a 9-game round. And 2 of them, I think, cumulative margin added up to, what would it be? Something around about the 70-point margin or something across 2 games that I tipped off wrong. 65 points off between Collingwood and Adelaide. I tipped 4 games within a point, which is quite ridiculous, and 6 games within a goal, as I said. So anyway, now we marvel over that and we go again and we try and beat that, which is going to be near on impossible. I think it was an easy round, I will say. We basically tipped 9 favourites. All the favourites won, which was obviously is going to help that, and that you don't have to pick an outsider. But to tip the margin that well is a pretty good effort. So we get to round 18, and in this round, I think we've got quite a lot of games again. Sort of, as you can see, 83, 74 is the lowest. We've got this game here, 54. So that's the coin toss of the round. That one game decides basically if you're in the top 40% for the round for tipping, or if you're in the bottom sort of 40%, and then margin will decide the rest of it, I guess, to a certain extent. So, Brisbane against Carlton. We know, or that I should say, I'm pretty damn confident in this game, in round 18, that Brisbane will beat Carlton. Pretty confident that they will win. And I think they will win pretty convincingly. If we look at the lineups here, you've also got Oscar McInerney back for Sam Day, which means Darcy Fort will, if I'm right in saying that, play as a forward. Am I right in saying that? Or has he just been dropped? Let me see. Where is Darcy Fort? Let me go to Brisbane and just see if I can find him. He's in the followers. And then you've also got the likes of Oscar McInerney on the interchange bench. So I expect probably one of those guys to be subbed out. I don't expect Oscar McInerney to start a sub. But for them to go double tall to sort of counteract the double tall from Carlton is quite funny. Pitnet and DeConing there. So that pretty much limits one of Carlton's only good things. So I'm going to go Brisbane in this game. And I think they absolutely maul them. Like, if we look at their last couple games, Brisbane, they beat Port Adelaide by 28. They beat Geelong by 41. They did lose to GWS because they couldn't kick the ball. And then they did also lose to Adelaide because they couldn't kick the ball between the middle 2 sticks. And then they did beat Essendon, even though they couldn't really kick the ball between the middle 2 sticks. So I'm going to go Brisbane in this game. I think that Carlton will show some fight, but some fight could easily be like a 45-point margin or something. So I'm going to go 45 points, which, yeah, they could easily outdo that, but I think that'll be roughly where the margin lays. People First Stadium, Gold Coast against Collingwood. This one will be an interesting one. Gold Coast in some form. Do you go Gold Coast? Do you go Collingwood, etc.? Collingwood obviously in the best form in the comp, 140 percentage, just basically knocking teams off by 5-6 goals each week at least, except for that Melbourne game where they couldn't, they probably should have lost that, to be honest, to Melbourne. And then also they smashed Hawthorn. So I think you have to go Collingwood in this game. I know that Gold Coast are doing really well, and they did beat Melbourne, they did beat Essendon, but do they really have the ability, I'm going to say this, do they have the ability to beat sides that are in and around them and above them? And I just don't know if they do. So I'm going to go Collingwood in this game. I think it will be a really tight one, but I'm going to go Collingwood in this game by 19 points. Western Bulldogs against Adelaide. This one could actually be the game of the round. Part of me says, yeah, go Western Bulldogs, etc. But they haven't beaten like anyone above them. And Adelaide have just come off a win against Melbourne, and then a game against Richmond, lost to Hawthorn, which they really should have won. And then they beat the likes of Brisbane, which they probably should have lost at. And then they also beat Sydney so damn convincingly. I know that Sydney didn't have like any one of their star players, but Western Bulldogs just confused me a little bit. They probably should have ran away with that North Melbourne game a little bit more. They barely beat Sydney, which was a full-strength Sydney side. Sydney probably should have won that if they could hit their set shots. And then they beat Richmond pretty convincingly. And then they also beat St Kilda. I think I'm going to go against the grain here and say Adelaide in this game. I think it will be a shootout. But I think under the roof at Marvel, I would much rather have Adelaide's forward line than Western Bulldogs forward line, and that's saying something. I just think that the Thilthorpe alongside, let's actually just show you that forward line in general for Adelaide. Let's just go back here and show you that. We scroll down here, you will see their forward line for Adelaide. If we go down here, it's Walker, Thilthorpe alongside Fogarty, all in there. Josh Shelley being out was a huge out for them as well. But yeah, I just think that Adelaide are able to win this one, and I'm going to go Adelaide in a tight one by 14 points. I think it will be like 100 to 114, something of that regard there. Then you've got GWS against Geelong, another team that GWS, I feel like they struggle to beat the teams above them. I know that they actually are saying that. They beat Brisbane and also Gold Coast, who are above them, and then lost to Port Adelaide and beat Richmond. But it seems like they just need a bucket load of luck to actually win these games. Like Richmond kicked 10 goals, 17. They lost to a Port Adelaide side that kicked 9 goals, 12. They beat Brisbane by 11 points, even though they had 9 less shots. They beat Gold Coast, who had an extra 3 shots, and they beat them by 7 points. And then they beat West Coast because West Coast are horrific. I just think Geelong are one of the more clinical sides in front of goal, if we can grab it up here. They beat Richmond by so many points. They lost to Brisbane because they couldn't kick straight in that game. Then they beat Essendon pretty convincingly, kicking straight. They beat Gold Coast kicking straight, and then they also beat West Coast kicking straight. So I just think that Geelong win this one, and it will be a tightish display, but I think that they win this one by 17 points. And then we get to Richmond Essendon. I think even Essendon should be winning this one. I hope that they win this one, so that even though Sydney plays St Kilda, who they're probably going to win, but yeah, I think that Essendon win this one against Richmond, and so Richmond, I think without Layla and some other guys, are really going to struggle. So I think that Essendon win this one pretty convincingly, and I think that they win it by 25 points there, even with Caldwell out. Then we get to Hawthorn against Fremantle. For Sydney's sake, they probably need Fremantle to win, because if you look at all the tips that I've had this week, it actually brings Sydney back into the fold if they do beat St Kilda, which I think that they will. But yeah, Fremantle against Hawthorn. I think Hawthorn win this one, and I'm going to go Hawthorn by, I think, 27 points. I really do think that they're going to be able to beat Fremantle, who have probably just struggled in that game against Sydney. They probably should have lost it by more, to be honest with you. They beat St Kilda, but that was only because St Kilda both of them couldn't kick straight. If one of them had kicked straight, they would have won. Whoever kicked more straight, which was Fremantle, and then won that game. Essendon's just a horrific team. Barely squeaked over the line against North Melbourne, and then barely squeaked over the line against Gold Coast. I think that Hawthorn win this game, and they're able to solidify themselves in the top 8. That would put them basically a couple of games clear. You would expect potentially even 2 and a percentage game clear of the 8, which would be really good for them. That would pretty much solidify finals. But yeah, I think Hawthorn will win this one, and I'm pretty sure I tipped them, if I just remember correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. Yep, tipped them by 27 points. Then we've got Melbourne against North Melbourne. You'd expect, with all the injuries for North Melbourne that we're hearing, even though they might have some guys returning, that they get over the line. I think also Melbourne are just in... I know that they lost to Adelaide, but that was a pretty decent performance. They lost to Gold Coast, but it was an all right performance. They lost to Port Adelaide, not a good performance. They lost to Collingwood, decent performance, probably should have deserved to win. And then they lost to St Kilda because they couldn't kick straight and kick like 12 behinds in the second half. So I think that they're going to beat North Melbourne, and I think they're going to do it by 21 points. I think if they can kick straight, they'll do it. Sydney against St Kilda. Sydney don't have the likes of Joel Amartey, so they'll probably, I don't know what in the world they'll do, to be honest with you. But yeah, I just have a feeling that they are able to get the job done against St Kilda. If you look at their last couple games, beat Fremantle, barely lost to the Bulldogs, beat Port Adelaide, beat Richmond, and then also lost to Adelaide. In these last 4 games, they've gone 3-1. And almost should have probably won that Western Bulldogs game to go 4-0, basically, since they've got their players back. I know that they lose Amartey this week and for the rest of the year, but if they can beat this St Kilda side, they close it. And if they can win convincingly by like 40, 45, 50 points, somewhere in that range, they really do close the gap up significantly. If we are going to say that that Fremantle lose by 27 points, and then also Sydney win by 50 or so points. So I'm going to go Sydney by, I think, 8 goals. They win it by 48. I think this is a big breakout game where they win like 120 to 80 or something of that regard. They really do stamp it down. Even with the Marty, I just think that St Kilda are going to struggle. I know that they also have Tom Papley out, but we should see Detoli debut in this game, you would expect. And then Port Adelaide against West Coast. I'm expecting Port Adelaide to win this game pretty damn convincingly, to the point that I'm going to tip them in this game by 10 goals exactly. I think that West Coast are just, horrific. And I think that Port Adelaide will be able to win it. So submit these tips, and then we will quickly just go on to Squiggle to sort of show you the ladder as it develops. Maybe this is the optimist in me with the Swans being like, oh, they could do it. But if we go that they're going to win by 45 points, then we said Collingwood is going to win by 19 points. Then we said, who was it in this game that we tipped? Actually having to go back and remember. We tipped Adelaide in this game by 14. So we go down there. Then we would have tipped Geelong. Yeah, Geelong by 17. And see how this ladder is taking shape. We would have tipped Essendon in this game by 25 points. Then we tipped Hawthorn in this game by 27. Then we tipped Melbourne by 21. And then we tipped Sydney by a clean 48. And then we tipped Port Adelaide by 60. So this is what the ladder would look like if all those results came in. You'd see this would definitely close up a lot. And if Fremantle actually lost by a little bit more, if we just go actually to put that back in place, and then we go to fixtures, and then we tip this Fremantle game, and we just say instead of 74, let's just say that they score sort of 60 or something. Not 60, please. And you'll see that that gap really starts to close a little bit. And so if you're actually looking at it, I think it's about 10 points per percentage or so. So if you think about it, that's about 80 points difference after this week. If they were to also, it'd be probably actually, I think it was a 106.9. So it'd be about the 10 points or about 100-point differential between the two sides after a 65-point swing in that week alone. So anyway, just thought I'd do that a little bit there before ending off this video, just to show how difficult it is for Sydney to get into the 8. My boys to get into the 8. They need a lot of results to go their way. They're probably going to need someone like an Essendon coming out next week and beating GWS just to help them out a little bit. Just looking at the tips, maybe even a Port Adelaide winning against a Hawthorn. Just going through the tips quickly here, just to sort of give them that Kickstarter, because they're going to need they're going to have to pummel North Melbourne, I have a feeling, next week, and pummel them by like 90 odd points or something like that, just to really get that percentage up and into range. Because if they can do that, then there'll be a chance, but I just don't see it, realistically speaking, given the injuries that they've got, for them to make a charge. But we'll see about that as they are close-ish, but they're still far away. They need to make that percentage up in the next 2 or 3 weeks against St Kilda and North Melbourne, but we'll see. But anyway, if you guys did enjoy that video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and I will see you guys probably on Saturday and Sunday for AFLW video. So I'll see you guys then. Bye, guys.